Hey there, it's Jamie, and we're going to do the analysis called for in activity 2 of part 3 of the Zappos project. We just went over in the other video an explanation of all the different pieces to this analysis, and I included explanations of what I did there, but I didn't actually walk you through with a play-by-play of getting through it. This video is about creating these using a play-by-play. So each of these pivot charts, we have price by brand. We're going to do the first one. The second one is overall rating, comfort rating, and style by brand. And then we're going to do true to size and true to width by brand. And then I've been talking about it out loud, what I see, but as you do each of these, you're going to create a text box and explains your findings. I'll show you in the first one, but then I'll let you, do your own from there. So we'll start by inserting the pivot chart. I'm using pivot tables and then formatting them as charts because not all versions of Excel have pivot charts, but do whatever works for you. So I'm going to start in my data and then insert pivot table. The range that I want is automatically selected because I was in a cell within the table. And then I'm going to move it to an existing worksheet, which is A2 and this cell here. So what I'm looking for is price by brand. I'm going to put brand in my rows and then price in my values. And rather than sum of price, I want average price. I don't want to add up every price of every shoe by each brand. I just want the average shoe price. And then I'm going to format it as currency and sort it by average of price in an ascending order. And here we go. We can see that they range from the least expensive shoe at $93 a pair, made by Nike, or on average, Nikes are the least expensive at $93 a pair, and the most expensive are Hoka One One at $138.76 per pair. Tables are really useful, but graphs are even better at creating an image that our brains can work quite well with and understand. So I'm going to insert a column chart, and here it is. I'm going to put it somewhere kind of close to what I'm working with, but now I've got to format this chart. Every chart needs a title. Well, that's easy. Let's call this average shoe price by brand. I only capitalized the first word. That's called using sentence case, and you can do that. You can capitalize every word, but just be consistent. Choose one approach and apply it uniformly to all your charts. Another thing that this chart doesn't need is a legend, because there's only one thing I'm plotting. Then every chart needs axis titles or axis labels. We're going to label the primary horizontal axis and the primary vertical axis. If you're on a PC, it's easier. You just click on the plus. I'm going to call this price per pair, and I'm going to call this brand of shoes. I really am. And I'll zoom in there so you can see what it looks like. Okay, price by brand, done. The next thing we're going to do is overall rating, comfort rating, and style rating by brand. So it's another pivot chart, pivot table. We'll use the same approach. Insert pivot table. Then it knows the data because of where I was placed, and then I want to put it in an existing worksheet, and I want to put it here. I'm going to put it below the level of the previous chart that I made, right? And here, again, it's by brand, so I'm going to draw a brand down, but I want the overall rating, the comfort rating, and style rating. Overall rating, comfort rating, style rating. And then for each of these, I want average, not sum. You have to just get average every time. I know that there will be people who submit these with sum or count or something that's not average, and you can't draw a conclusion with sum, right? Because it's adding them all up. You have to know, how many shoes each brand has for it to make any sense at all. So you really need average. And we're going to format them as a number because that gives us 2 decimal places. So this looks fine, right? This table, but one of the things that I would like to have is something slightly more compact. So to get these labels to wrap over multiple lines, I'm going to use the wrap text function. And then I'm going to make them smaller. And then in order for everything to be visible, I need to drag them down so that it's wider. And then you're just going to have to play with the width of the columns so that everything is visible. I'm going to center everything. I'm going to wrap that. I'm going to center it. So satisfying. Okay, we got it. Sorry, I think I'm funny. So here we have our different ratings, our overall rating, our comfort rating, and our style rating. I'm going to start by sorting these by overall rating in an ascending order. So like we saw in A1, New Balance is our overall least preferred model and ASICS is the most. I'm going to put these in a chart because charts say 1,000 words, literally. It's going to be a column chart. And here it is. It shows up and it's like, bam, look at that. Here we go. See how this is average of overall rating? That's a lot of words. I'm just going to change these. Overall rating. Oh, okay, let's call it overall. Comfort. Style. There, now I don't need these to be quite as big. And then I'm going to make this bigger because it wants to be. And I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to add a chart title above the chart. If you're in a PC, it's so much easier for you. You just have a little plus button here. Then I'm going to add axis titles or axis labels. Sometimes they're called. A horizontal one and a vertical one. And then I'm going to label them. Star rating, brand, and then you need to give it a title. If your chart is labeled well, people will know what it is without having to ask, right? And that's great for your audience. They'll like you more. You'll get better grades. And then if you need to go back and try to figure out what you did at a later date, you'll know what you did because it's labeled. Otherwise, you're going to go back and say, what the heck was that? And so what the heck is this? This is star rating comfort rating and style rating by brand. Average. Cool. So here you can play with how you sort them. Right now I have them sorted by overall. That's nice. In this case, because the leftmost value is overall, it's kind of nice to have that one sorted in an ascending order, and then the other ones will fall into place. But then you might look and say, well, how do they rate for comfort? What if we sort by comfort? You can change that rating to comfort. And that changes the pattern, right? We could do it by style. Style is kind of nice to look at aesthetically because Brooks and ASICS both, have this pattern, and then so does Saucony, and so it kind of makes sense also, one way or the other. You'll notice that as you change these, the order of the shoes alters within here, but you'll quickly see the pattern that the ones that are the best are these Hoka One One, Asics, and Brooks. Adidas shows up with the overall rating, but it ranks low enough with respect to comfort and style that it doesn't break into these, these top echelon. If you're an athlete, it only makes it to the podium once. So you can sort it however you want, and then you'll describe it. So what I want you to talk about in your description is to insert a text box for each of these. We'll do one more in a second, and describe what you see. So the last pivot table we need to do is true to width and true to size by brand, right? Are some shoes sized better than others? This would give us a sense of that. I'm going to come down and I'm going to go to my tab 2 and I'm going to make another data table. Or pivot table. Why do I call it data table? It's a pivot table. We're going to stick it in an existing worksheet below the level of the previous graph. And then here we go again. We want true to width and true to size by brand. So I'm going to put brand in my rows, and then I'm going to click true to size and true to width. Again, you have got to change it to average. Seriously, I swear, I promise, if you don't have it on average, you're going to screw it all up. It's going to all be less right than you want it to be. Then we're going to format these numbers as a percentage with 1 decimal place. Why? Because I said so. No, I'm kidding. Why is a percentage? That was funny too. Because each of these numbers refer to the percentage of customers who rated the shoe. They said this shoe is true to size or true to width, right? So with Adidas running, 78.5% of respondents said that the shoe ran true to size. 88% said they ran true to width. So in this graph, well, I guess I'll start by making the graph. Highlight the data. Don't highlight the grand total. You'll notice in none of these did we highlight a grand total. If you have something over here that says grand total, you've done it wrong. And then we're going to insert a graph. Bring it down here. We will add a chart title. We will add some axis titles. And then here we keep the legend because there are 2 things, right? Average of true to size and average true to width. That's a lot of title, but I think it tells you what's going on. I'm going to call it average percent of respondents reporting true to size and true to width. This is going to be percent. This is going to be brand. And then you saw how it got smushed. You can just make it bigger. All right. So how do we sort this? Anyway is fine, but what I would start with when I have multiple things, as I mentioned earlier, is I pick one. I'm going to sort it by average of true to size, and I'm going to put it in ascending order. And now the blue lines get successively larger with each shoe. And knowing that we're getting larger with each shoe, if these 2 variables, true to size and true to width, were related, shoes that were true to size were also true to width, then we would see true to width increasing also, or at least a similar pattern, but we actually don't see them moving together. So probably some shoes can be the right length but the wrong width, right? Or the wrong length but the right width. Those things don't have to work together. So we can see that sizing is independent, right? That's the kind of thing that I would write based on this. Although I would also note that Brooks, New Balance, Saucony, Asics, all these are more likely to be true to size or true to width in, they both seem to be fairly good. Those are brands that you're less likely to have to return. Adidas, you might have to return it for the sizing, but it's pretty darn true to width. Brooks seems like the best bet for getting the shoe in the size that you think that fits the width and length that you were expecting. That's what I would write. All right. Happy calculating. Make sure to write a blurb for each graph.